15. Big Maybelle, The Storm. That shook every stage. Before the spotlight even warmed her skin, Big Maybelle was already a force people could feel from across the room. She walked into smoky clubs where the air was thick with sweat, perfume, and cheap whiskey. And the moment she touched a microphone, everything stopped. Audiences didn't just hear her voice. They felt it rumble through their ribs. She sang Candy like it was ripped straight from her soul, drenched in longing and velvet soft pain. But behind that power lived a woman fighting every battle at once, an unforgiving industry, personal demons, and a world that loved her voice. But never fully loved her back. Still, even now, every modern R&B singer who reaches for a note soaked in emotion is unknowingly reaching for Maybelle's ghost. 14. Billy Wright, the original Flash of Atlanta. Billy Wright didn't walk into a room. He arrived, sequins sparkling, hair pressed perfectly, moves sharper than the spotlight could catch.
I ain't ready to die.
Long before R&B artists experimented with theatrical flair, Billy was already performing with a boldness that felt decades ahead of its time. His voice slid across melodies like silk dipped in fire, each lyric delivered with the confidence of a man who knew he was rewriting the rules. Songs like Blues for My Baby carried his signature style, dramatic, charming, dripping with swagger. But even with all that brilliance, the industry wasn't ready for someone so unapologetically different. And so, many of the artists he influenced soared past him, while the man who lit the match was left in the shadows of the flame he created. 13. The Five Royales, the blueprint everyone stole.
Free now, but I'd like to say on behalf of the Five Royales.
In the early 1950s, the Five Royales didn't just sing. They built an entire sound from scratch.
It goes something like this.
Gritty gospel harmonies mixed with street-slick blues. Their music was the foundation that later groups stood on without even realizing it. Their guitarist, Lowman Pete Pauling, played riffs that echoed through generations, edgy, raw, and strangely modern. When they sang Think, they weren't recording a simple single. They were laying down the DNA of future soul music. But timing is a cruel master. They came too early, before charts, labels, and managers knew what to do with innovators. The world eventually embraced the sound, but by then, the originators had already been forgotten by the scripts that praised the successors. 12. Varetta Dillard, the survivor, with a shout. Varetta Dillard sang like she had fire burning behind her teeth. Raised in Harlem and battling medical issues from childhood, she refused to let anything dim her light. When she performed Mercy, Mr. Percy, she wore each word like a badge of resilience. Yes, baby, I cry. Sharp, playful, confident, alive. Crowds loved her. Jukeboxes spun her records non-stop, and her voice carried a flavor that couldn't be replicated. But as the industry shifted into cleaner, polished girl group sounds, women like Varetta, women with grit and grown woman attitude, were pushed aside. Her story is the story of countless women whose raw talent was too real, too powerful, too ahead of its time. 11. Nappy Brown, the man who bended notes. Like rubber.
So they shortened it with Nappy Brown.
Nappy Brown stepped on stage like a lightning bolt looking for a place to strike. His voice didn't just sing, it stretched. He could pull a single syllable into a 10-second roller coaster, twisting it like taffy, until the crowd screamed. That wild gospel-inspired howl became his trademark. When he performed Don't Be Angry, you could hear the joy, pain, and spiritual thunder rolled into one. But as R&B shifted and newer artists took cues from him, Nappy's name didn't always travel with the style he helped invent.
Come on, baby.
His influence survived in the sound, but not always in the credit, a cruel pattern of the era. 10. Camille Howard, the woman with fire in her fingers. Before anyone could say boogie woogie, Camille Howard was already carving her name into the piano like a chisel into stone. Her fingers were a blur, thundering out rhythms that made whole clubs erupt before she even opened her mouth. Tracks like Extemporaneous Boogie showcased a talent so fierce that even her bandmates would watch her hands in disbelief. And yet, despite her unmatched skill, Camille faced the hurdle many brilliant women musicians faced. She was celebrated on stage, but forgotten in the footnotes. A woman outplaying the men around her didn't fit the story the industry wanted to tell, so they didn't tell it. But you can still hear her fire in every modern pianist who dares to break the rules. 9. Larry Darnell, the actor of Heartbreak. Larry Darnell sang like every performance might be his last. He didn't just deliver lyrics, he acted them, pouring out emotion so raw.
Whatever you ask for, I give.
It felt like he was letting the audience read pages from a diary he meant to burn. When For You, My Love hit the airwaves. People didn't hear a singer, they heard a man confessing. But the intensity that fueled his art became harder to maintain as R&B evolved. The spotlight shifted to younger, smoother faces. And Larry, the man who taught the genre how to deliver high drama, watched his influence ripple out through singers who never knew his name. 8. Little Esther Phillips, the 14-year-old with a grown woman's pain.
Factory definitions. We can agree with Ray Charles when he says, we don't...
At just 14, little Esther had a voice that sounded like she'd lived 100 lives.
You know, sisters,
She poured heartbreak, joy, and world weariness into every note of double-crossing blues.
but I know that the struggle is over. Far, far from it.
Her phrasing was so mature that radio listeners assumed she was a seasoned adult performer.
How truly sensitive.
But early fame came with a cost. The industry loved her talent, but didn't protect her youth, pushing her into a world of adult pressures far too soon.
Georgia Rose.
Yet even through heartbreak and reinvention, Esther's voice never lost its truth. When she sang, you felt everything.
Don't think it's right.
7. Johnny Ace, the promise that ended too soon. Johnny Ace had the kind of smooth, gentle voice that made listeners lean closer to the radio. His delivery on Pledging My Love felt like a private conversation whispered across a warm room. He was rising fast, touring, charting, building a name that felt destined for greatness. But fame's pressure cracked the surface, and on a tragic night backstage, a reckless moment ended his life at just 25. That one decision froze him in time, forever young, forever rising, forever unfinished. Pledging My Love became both his love letter and his goodbye. Linda Hopkins, a voice that could crack the ceiling. Linda Hopkins didn't sing, she summoned. Her voice had the weight of gospel choirs and the grit of barrel house blues.
Some was drinking rum, didn't have a glass so they wouldn't give me none.
When she belted rock and roll blues, it felt like the walls shook. She toured relentlessly, lit up stages from New Orleans to New York.
That's high as I can be.
And carried herself with the kind of pride only true legends have. But while others with smaller voices climbed into mainstream success, Linda's powerhouse presence kept her in a lane that the industry didn't fully know how to market. Still, every note she sang echoed with the strength of someone who refused to be ignored.
I was standing in the corner just as high as I can be.
5. Wynonie Harris, the fire that ignited rock and roll.
I felt my clothes as my wallet rose.
Wynonie Harris was chaos wrapped in charisma. When he performed Good Rockin' Tonight, it was pure electricity. Hips shaking, crowds screaming.
I went out on the picnic grounds to have my
Energy exploding. He was a wild man, a showman, a pioneer who kicked open the doors that rock and roll would later walk through.
it ought to be. Don't go no further.
But the industry wanted younger faces and safer stars. Wynonie's edge, the very thing that made him great, became the reason they replaced him. Yet if you listen closely to early rock icons, you can trace every growl, shout, and swagger straight back to Wynonie.
Drop that loot. Are you kidding? Put it right.
4. LaVern Baker, the flame that refused to go out. LaVern Baker's voice came with a warning. This is not a woman you forget. Soul on Fire was exactly that. Fierce, smoky, and emotional. She carried herself with pride. Refusing to let anyone dim her talent or her personality. She fought battles behind the scenes, demanded fairness, and paved the way for women who came after her. But even with all that strength, she was often overshadowed by those who copied the path she carved. Her legacy is the kind that grows bigger the more you learn about her. 3. Johnny Otis, the man behind the movement.
Deep in the way is a wall.
Johnny Otis didn't just make music, he created opportunities.
I've seen in the world.
He discovered talent where the industry wasn't looking, brought artists onto stages they were excluded from, and built songs like Willie and the Hand Jive.
Well, all right, play it, sugar.
That captured the rhythm of a generation. He didn't chase glory, he chased community. And while his name is often pushed to the...
Say, Delmar, tell me something, man. What's the name? What's the name?
2. The Orioles, the kings of early harmony. Before doo-wop became a teenage phenomenon, the Orioles perfected the blend everyone else copied. Their harmonies were smooth as velvet, floating effortlessly over simple arrangements. Crying in the Chapel wasn't just a song, it was a moment. A quiet spiritual whisper that touched people across the country. But newer groups came in polished suits with choreographed routines, and the Orioles The architects of the entire sound were left behind. Their voices shaped history, even if their names faded. One, Ruth Brown, the woman who built an empire.
So disappointed.
Ruth Brown wasn't just a star, she was the heartbeat of an entire label. Her success practically built Atlantic Records brick by brick. When she released Teardrops from My Eyes, she shook the charts, the clubs,
I had last night.
and the entire direction of R&B. But the industry didn't treat her with the respect she earned. She fought for her royalties, fought for her name,
But when I looked around,
and fought for justice long after the stage lights dimmed. Ruth Brown is the reason the phrase Queen of R&B even exists.
what a dream I had last.
Her story is the perfect example of brilliance surviving despite everything.